Good afternoon. It is Thursday, September 1st, and I'm going to be doing a drive here in rush hour from my house here in Northeast Minneapolis to my gym with FSD Beta 10.69.1. Like my previous drives, I expect to see some improvements as well as some areas that still need some improvement. So without further ado, let's go for a drive and see how it does. And I'm going to be actually taking this drive and starting from the road here. The last two videos that I've posted, actually last several of them, have shown that FSD Beta has struggled to engage coming out of my driveway. So it seems to be a continued regression from 10.10.2. I first noticed that sort of behavior in 10.12.2, and it's going to continue from there. So we have a car behind us here, so I'm just going to nudge it forward here. All right. So that intersection there, we have some people that sometimes speed down the streets there. It sometimes would take a little bit, and it looks like that's unfortunate there. So I'm going to report that as well. The hesitation that seemed to have been fixed in 10.12.2 seems to be back now in 10.69.1. So that's kind of frustrating. The intersection, as you see, is almost always empty. So not quite sure why it overly hesitates there, but that issue has kind of come and gone, and now it looks like it's back again. So hopefully in .2 here we'll see an improvement again there. But all right, so this is an unprotected right turn. We have a car coming across the train tracks here. We had an opportunity to go, but we waited too long. So let's see what we do after this van. We should be safe to go after this. I don't see any other cars beyond this, and we are going. Now we have somebody trying to budge out here. So yeah, I guess aside from just overly waiting the first time, it was safe, so I don't have any problem with it. Obviously, we'd like to see it be a bit more aggressive, like a human driver would. So I'm going to just report that. But again, it was safe to wait and go. Obviously, we'd be frustrating a driver behind us if we, waited any longer. But yeah, it's not terrible behavior there. So. Alright, and this is our problematic intersection. I actually released a separate video that demonstrates the challenges with this intersection here. You can see Planner is trying to, go to the right here. So it's not as aggressive as it was yesterday when I did this test, but it's still, you can see we're positioned to the right even though we're going to be making a left-hand turn. So for drivers behind us, it's super confusing. And now the challenge here is we have to kind of cross this line, cross the crosswalk up there to make our left turn, and then we're going to have to deal with oncoming traffic. It's not as busy as it was today, but we're definitely going to have cars coming at us here once this light turns green that we'll have to deal with. So the correct behavior here would be to stay to the left. You basically align yourself as tight as you can to that center line, roll forward, and wait at that crosswalk to complete your turn. That's what a human driver should do, right? And you can see here, we're kind of hanging to the left here. And again, we're trying to turn into cars here, so I had to disengage there, and I'm just going to drive this manually here and complete this turn. But as you can see there, again, the latency is just too much. We start off on a bad foot with the posture, and then we obviously then can't react quick enough to those cars because your window is very small between when you can go and when you can't. And if you don't go, you're just going to be waiting there basically until the light turns yellow. And then obviously red to complete your turn. So the posture would be a good improvement to see first, but obviously it's going to take some effort there to get us back to a good spot. But again, that intersection has been, I would say, FSD Beta's kryptonite right now. It seems to not be able to really work very well there, and hasn't for some time. So it is what it is. Again, there's always room for improvement here. There's a lot of good things that part of this build that I'm really excited about still. So yeah, we'll just have to kind of wait and see what comes in .2, but I continue to report these situations to the team, and they're doing the best they can, so we appreciate it. All right, not sure why we were going as if we were not going to stop there. I'm going to take over here. Actually, there's a pretty big manhole cover there. I like my wheels too much, so I don't want to run that over. But I'm going to hit report back there because of the fact that we weren't appearing and we weren't stopping. I don't know if it couldn't see the stop sign because of the shadows or what, but we carried quite a bit of speed to that stop line there. It wasn't necessary. So haven't really seen that before. I'm guessing that could just be just the shadows or whatever, but definitely something worth reporting. All right, so this is a pretty busy intersection a lot of times, and we did a fairly good job there of not overly hesitating and confidently proceeding when it was safe to do so. So that one can be kind of hit or miss, especially if there's a car kitty corner from us or across the intersection that is either going straight or turning towards us. That's caused for some problems in the past. So you can see some interesting behavior here. Planner is getting really confused here, and this is pretty consistent with what I've seen in previous builds. Yesterday we had a lead car when I came through here on a drive I didn't record, and in previous builds I'll say the one issue that we'll see here is you'll see the confusion with Planner here. What will happen is it will go, instead of going and just hanging out in the middle of the road space, it will try to take that right turn lane, which doesn't follow the route, as you can kind of see here. So we got to stay in this middle lane when we cross this intersection. So this behavior, I'm not sure why, if it's bad map data or what, but let's see if it figures it out. It did yesterday, but we had a lead car, so you can see there, it actually figures it out now. So this is something new. I have not seen this in previous builds. It would always cause for confusion and or a disengagement at that spot there. So it still signals like it's going to make that same mistake, but then it does the right thing. So very similar to my first video where when I crossed Central Avenue on 37th Avenue there, about closer to our house, it would try to use the right turn lane to go straight, which is right turn only. So it now does the right behavior in 10.69.1. So seeing these issues getting fixed, I have to believe this is something that's related to the deep lane guidance module they've added. So obviously the map data would be great to be fixed on a more frequent schedule, since a lot of this map data in the Twin Cities is 3+ years old. But their approach may be, again, bearing fruit here, and that it's now working even with bad map data. The car is figuring it out on its own, which is really cool to see. But there's a lot of other areas where that could cause challenges as well. So I feel like maps are still going to be something the team is going to have to rely on for the time being, but if they're reducing their reliance like Elon promised and what we're seeing here, it's really promising, because it's really going to help out with FSD's performance around the Twin Cities, again, because we have really bad or out-of-date map data. So good stuff. So that's interesting behavior right there. You saw as the road split, the car wanted to dive into the right lane, and I think the more natural way to deal with that is to stay in the left lane. And I've noticed it appear, you'll see it again up here. I noticed this in my drive yesterday too. It should actually try to stay in the right lane here, which is really for traffic that's turning from there. So I don't think that's the right move either, so I'm going to report that. But that's new behavior I haven't seen before. So again, I'm not sure if this is part of maybe one of the side effects of that deep lane guidance module, where it gets it wrong. We saw some areas where it gets it right, but that was an example, I think, maybe of it getting it wrong. Two of them actually back to back. So first time it figured it out, but it was a little jerky. Second time, obviously, it went in the right lane there, and it shouldn't have. So some additional training is going to be needed there for situations like that. These roads are pretty unique, I think, compared to what you see elsewhere in the country. So either way, hopefully the team can get this data and make use of it. So. Alright, so I'm not sure why we needed to get in the turn lane like this. So I'm going to actually just disengage here and reposition ourselves just to be a good steward of the road. But let's see here, we're going to report that. So again, both these lanes turn, so I'm not sure if the bad map data here is overriding maybe deep lane guidance or whatever, but that's an area right there that's still a problem. The right thing to do would just be stay in the right lane, in my opinion, and then just make the left turn normally. Because both lanes are going where we need to go here. So who knows what the root cause of that issue is, but definitely something that needs to be fixed at some point. All right, so we are actually approaching the Minnesota State Fair here. I would avoid this way if I could, but this is our test route, so that I'm trying to keep things consistent between our builds. This is one variable I can't control, but so there'll be some additional traffic up here. So I'll be on heightened alert kind of as we kind of approach this area, but it should just be more traffic. It shouldn't really create any more issues for us here. So we got to stay in this right lane here. So I'm going to take over. Again, when you have situations like this with heavier traffic, I've noticed FSD does not do a great job of getting in line and initiating its turn as it would, or getting in line and make a turn. If we would have went up there, we would have had to try to then cut back over. You would never get over. Nobody would let you in. So I'm going to try to re-engage here, and hopefully it doesn't try to go around this car. Alright, so we didn't try to use that shoulder on the right there. When I encountered that same turn yesterday, in previous builds, it would try to use the shoulder. They fixed that issue in 10.10.2, and then there was a regression in 10.12.2 where it would get in that shoulder and then just hang out there as if it was a lane, which was not the right thing to do, so it always required disengagement in the previous build. But now it looks like they put some cones there, so we were not able to really test that regression, if it's still there or not, at that location. There is another area that I will be testing either tonight or tomorrow, where it exhibited the same behavior in the previous build. So we'll see if it's still there or not. My hope is it would be resolved, because I've seen a lot more things of that nature fixed in 10.69.1, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see. A little bit of excessive braking there. I'm going to hit the report button on that, but didn't need to hit the brake so hard there. I'm not sure if it was because of that pedestrian on the corner there or what, but yeah, it wasn't needed there. So definitely some room for improvement. And there's always this area is always really interesting from a pedestrian perspective. And even just VRUs in general, because of the fact that there's people on scooters, stuff like that, zipping through. A lot of times people jaywalk around this area, so it's an interesting place to test FSD Beta. But as you can see, it's overly safe when it comes to VRUs. Like, if you're a pedestrian or bicyclist, I would not be worrying about something like this running you over anytime soon. It's really good at detecting folks and stopping accordingly. Like I said, if anything, it's a bit too conservative, but I totally understand why Tesla's erring on the side of safety there. So yeah, good to see that though. Overall though, again, it's not unsafe, unlike some people are saying out there. Not sure why we're slowing down there. We had canceled our navigation, and the car was still slowing as if it wanted to turn in there. It's one thing I've noticed with FSD Beta is you can cancel your route, and when you cancel it, the car doesn't necessarily want to keep going straight. It's really bizarre. Once we proceeded past that turn, though, it was fine. So, I'll report it. I'm not sure how they're going to figure out that context here, but this route's kind of confusing, so to get the car to do what I want, I kind of have to trick it out in the navigation, so that's why I don't have a route defined right now. But we should be able to define one now that we're kind of approaching our next turn up here. It's funny when people smile at you thinking you're driving and giving them space, but it's actually FSD Beta. That always makes me chuckle a little bit, like that lady just did there. But the car did a great job of detecting that car wanted to turn in front of us and gave him room. So that was pretty cool. But right there, a little bit of unnecessary braking, especially in the middle of the intersection there. So definitely going to report that. Not necessary, but if somebody was closer behind us, that would have been more of a problem. But the person behind us was kind of trailing behind a bit. So really no harm, no foul, just something that needs to be addressed going forward. A little bit of too much braking there. That was definitely a little unnerving. We needed to really work on the following distances between cars when you're in traffic like this, because keeping a big gap like that is not good. And then obviously the opposite of that, when there's a gap and we just jam on the brakes suddenly, that's definitely not needed and can be a bit alarming for folks following closely behind us, which is typical, right? Especially in heavy traffic situations like this. So some work needs to be done there. I'm guessing there's some tolerance built in because they're still trying to, gain confidence with the vision-only system, especially when you're, following traffic. We see this on the highway code, so I would assume it's the same with the FSD Beta code as well. So I'm sure that as we get closer to full stack, that will become better and improve over time. All right, so people ran the red light there, and FSD Beta did a good job of, waiting for them to pass, but aggressively kind of, I'd say, confidently proceeding as soon as they were out of the intersection there. So, and then you kind of noticed there, it did take its time a little bit as it proceeded, as if to kind of wait to make sure there was nobody else following, which is, I think, a really good thing to do, because I've seen it time and time again where somebody runs a red light and somebody behind them is still coming to run a red light, and you don't see that last person. That's where really bad accidents happen. So I'm glad it kind of hesitated there a little bit longer. It was still creeping forward though, so very human-like there. So that's a really good feature there. I hope we see more of that in the future, but that's some really good behavior that definitely is worth noting. So. All right, so just up ahead here, we're going to be making a unprotected left turn on St. Clair Avenue. This is a really busy intersection with some really poor visibility. Had some challenges here yesterday. Let's see what happens today. All right, we have a car coming on our left. We have an occlusion on our right there, so cars aren't really visible to the second. We're definitely posturing the right way to see traffic. Yeah, I'm going to take over here because it's getting confused with this car, this oncoming car there. We definitely should be making that left turn as soon as able, which we had an opportunity to, but it seems like when there's oncoming traffic there, all our luck goes out the window and we get really confused. You saw the erratic movements on the steering wheel there to kind of indicate that it was not confident to go. However, we had nudged forward enough to get visibility where we couldn't hang out there for a very long time. So I know there's some folks out there that believe that, the pillar cameras need to be moved forward. I am one of those people. I think that needs to happen at some point. Obviously, the occupation networks that the team has implemented in these recent builds is actually, 10.69 and newer. They're helping, right? They're helping see through occlusions and stuff like that, but back there we had a bunch of brush to our right. There's no seeing around that. There's no anticipating. You have to kind of peek forward, and if you had some more forward-facing visibility there, I think you could definitely make some better decisions and do it more quickly versus kind of peeking out. So, in order for the existing setup to work, I think in situations like that, the car is going to have to be quicker at reacting to the surrounding traffic, so that when it peaks out like that, it's got to go. It's got a very short window to go. And if it doesn't, it's got to back up. But in that situation there, we had somebody right behind us, so there was no backing up. So definitely a very interesting situation. I think a very good intersection to kind of test future unprotected left turn behavior at. So again, we'll continue to do this route, throughout each build that I get. So, but either way, obviously there's been some really good progress with this build. I'm just trying to provide, direct feedback here. The autopilot team is working their asses off here. Not sure why my camera died there, but yeah, we'll just give it a go here and hopefully it keeps recording. We were doing such a great job there slowing for that bicyclist that was crossing the road there. And then after he was, through the intersection, we then did some more braking that was unnecessary. So You know, I hit the throttle, which should send feedback to Tesla, but I just also reported that for good measure. You know, again, it's seeing pedestrians just fine, and bicyclists and all those sorts of, you know, VRUs just fine. It just seems to be overreacting a little bit too much. You know, again, they're erring on the side of caution, but as we, you know, mature the code and the behavior, those are things that are going to be, you know, addressed at some point. So. All right, and here we have our last turn of the route. This is an unprotected left turn. This intersection is kind of set up at an angle, so it's really tricky. It's one that's always busy, especially this time of day. Lots of pedestrian traffic, sometimes scooters, you name it. So we'll see how it does here. One of FSD's issues here, and I'm going to correct it and take over, is, you know, it kind of goes to the right again to make a left turn. It should be aligning itself to the line here. We've seen that issue time and time again, and it's really confused there. So I'm giving it a little bit of throttle because we have a little bit of a window to get going there, but, you know, it continues to struggle at intersections like that. And a lot of it starts going wrong, just like with St. Anthony Parkway, where we were turning onto earlier, where the car just all of a sudden wanted to, you know, essentially just turn into traffic, or it would just, you know, position itself too far to the right. So, you know, with that being said, definitely some things that need to be corrected in the future. But, you know, as you've seen on this drive, there's a lot of improvements. The behavior is a lot more polished in some aspects. So, you know, don't take my feedback as all negative. Just trying to be constructive here, and hopefully we'll see some more improvements. You know, the team is working their butts off as they always are. So we'll see some big improvements here in the next couple of releases that will continue to wow people. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.